Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Echoes of Experience. Um, Yesterday's video sparked another thought. I had a whole lot of tangents going on in my brain. Um, I mentioned that there was a time period in my life where I was in a depression for a long, long time. And for a long time, for me to be in a depression, at least that severe, is months. And that's what this was. So we're going to get into that and how what worked for me to break out of it. Maybe it'll help you. I don't know. I'm just going to jump into the story and then we'll get into what I did. Um, there was a time in my life a few years ago now, maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. Um, I was in a really, really bad, deep state of depression, and I don't think I talked to anybody about it. I think I think that was one of those situations where it didn't matter who you were. I wasn't going to talk about this because I felt like if I talked about this, I was going to end up um, in a padded room. So I didn't. Or someone was going to put me in a fucking home or something, for an inpatient program. And I didn't want to do that. I couldn't afford to do that. So I didn't. Um, I didn't talk about it. So during this time, it was so bad. I literally I remember the longest I stayed up during this period because it was so fucking hard for me to sleep. Um, I think was almost a full 48 hours, which I was not on drugs for. I just couldn't fucking sleep. There was too much going on in the brain. Um, and I was working a full time job, a heavy duty, um, physically demanding one at that. So I was very surprised that I couldn't sleep. I couldn't even eat. I probably looked sickly. I couldn't even eat any food. I remember I was trying to eat on my lunch break at work, and I was eating a little sub sandwich from Walmart because we're fancy in this bitch. um, and I think I got halfway through it before I felt like I was going to have to throw up, which was odd for me because normally throughout my life, I can eat a lot of food. And I didn't feel like full. I just felt like I couldn't fucking eat. My body, I was in such a bad state. My body was rejecting the food I was trying to put in it. Um, so I carried on this way. It was a few months. Like I of course ate every once in a while. Whenever my body felt like I could, um, and slept normally in the parking lot of my job. I would take like 30-minute naps. I think we had an hour lunch break. I would try to eat something and take 30-minute naps, and I ran like that for a while. But there was one day I literally couldn't do that, so I just kept working. I didn't even take my lunch break. I just kept fucking working. I didn't sleep that day. I didn't sleep. I did this for 2 days. I couldn't fucking eat, and I didn't sleep for 2 days, and I didn't talk to anybody about it. Um, but I was seriously contemplating whether or not it would be easier if I just didn't exist anymore. You know, um, which is a heavy topic in itself, but um, we'll get to the light at the closer to the end of the tunnel. Don't worry about it. We'll get there. Just stay with me. Um, so every single day, I tried to find some excuse because I had already broken out of this um, suicidal pattern where I really attempted multiple times throughout a span of weeks, um, to just end my life, and I was not clearly I wasn't successful. Um, So I was trying to not fall back into that while I was in this state of depression, because that shit sucked on its own. Now I'm in this new state where I don't know what the fuck to do, because I'm trying to stay the fuck away from the thought of just killing myself and not being here anymore. And it I no longer have problems. Nobody has to deal with me. Like, I'm no longer a burden on anybody. Nobody has to put up with me ever. And so I was really trying to stay away from that for this particular state, especially with how bad it was. Because I'm sure I looked fucking sickly, as skinny as I was. I don't think I weighed any more than maybe 170 at most, and I'm 6 foot two. I'm kind of a tall guy. Like, that's not a healthy weight for me. Um, so I ended up just drinking a lot, and that that numbed the feelings, and somewhat helped me sleep for a while if I went home after work and immediately took chugs out of the bottle, and repeated the cycle every day. I'd eat whenever my body would let me. I'd sleep whenever my body would let me, which wasn't much for this time period. Which I want to say that time period was like 2 months that I carried on like this, and it was so fucking bad. Um, I could be a little inaccurate with the time frame, but if I recall correctly, it was about 2 months. So as I'm going through this, I keep trying to find some kind of outlet, right? Some way to get all of this shit out without hurting myself or anybody else. And um, thankfully, my job helped with that a little bit. I got to swing a sledgehammer around sometimes, and I got to break shit that we weren't using. So that helped a little bit, but that obviously is not a permanent solution. That's a very, like, in the moment, can help a little bit kind of situation. I basically got paid to be in a rage room for a little bit, so in that regard, I was a little lucky. Um, and I've been writing lyrics since I was a teenager, and that was not helping. I would write song after song after song, and things were just not working. It just, if anything, it just felt worse, because now I'm writing about how I'm feeling. And what I didn't realize was I was sort of facing the emotions without actually facing the emotions while I was writing these songs. And it just felt bad. So I started drinking, and that became a problem pretty quickly, because I would be drinking at work, I'd be drinking at home. Sometimes I would go into work still fucked up from the night before, because obviously I didn't sleep, or at least didn't sleep much. So um, it just turned into this very unhealthy cycle. And I thought for sure that if I didn't take me out, this pattern was going to. I think it was 20 years old, maybe 21, maybe I just turned 21. Um, I thought for sure, like, that was it. This was going to be the end of me, because I couldn't seem to find a way out of this. Um, and to be honest with you, it took a lot of time and a lot of kicking myself in my own ass. Like, what the fuck are we doing? You know, because I feel like everybody has a sense of self preservation, and I feel like this is when mine finally kicked in. Um, there was a night I was uh, drinking, of course, and it was a Friday night, and I got so drunk. Like, first of all, I couldn't even stand up. Um, I was laid out on my floor and I couldn't get up. I literally felt like I couldn't move, and I'd had a moment similar to this years and years before, and I guess I didn't learn from it the first time. So we had a second one with alcohol, and I had a moment where I remember thinking if if I make it out of this, we have to change something. Something has to change because this cannot carry on anymore. This is going to kill me. So um, I woke up the next morning, surprisingly and unsurprisingly, felt like absolute shit. Um, though it was the literally the worst hangover of my life, and I've had some gnarly hangovers. This one was the worst one. Um, and I remember trying to like get up off of the floor after I finally passed out on the floor, and it took me I think 5 minutes just to stand up. And mind you, I'm like skin and bone, and I have a gut at the time, right? So like it shouldn't have been as hard as it was for me to stand up, but I guess with all the alcohol consumption, it just fucked with my brain connectivity in a certain way, or maybe my muscles were just fucked because of the lack of sleep for however long. Like I don't know. Um, I didn't go to the doctor for this. I should have, but I didn't. So um, I stand up and I take the day to just recover, and I'm drinking water and I'm laying in bed because I finally get to bed after I have a case of water sitting next to my bed. Um, and the first thing I thought of to start changing this cycle I was in was, why don't we get back into working out? Because that everybody tells me that that's a really good healthy way to um, kind of cope with all the stresses in life, and this felt like a major stress, and it could be a turning point in a good way or a bad way. Oh, it's up to me to turn it into a good way, right? It's up to me to make the right decision because no one's going to do it for me. So um, that Sunday, I decided I was going to start doing push-ups, and I think I I think I did maybe 9 or 10 push-ups, and I literally couldn't do anymore. So then I went on to squats just with body weight, and I think I did 20 of those and couldn't do anymore. So I just kind of kept up that cycle of when we had a day at work where it was kind of slow, I would do workouts at work, just to kind of build the strength up. And I started slowly introducing foods into my diet that were a little bit healthier. And I don't know how I even put the pieces together. I recently learned this as a fact. Your gut health is directly correlated to your mental health, and so is everything physical. So if you're in shitty physical shape, and I've been there, um, your brain just does not, your mental is not gonna be okay. Like it's almost, I wouldn't say it's impossible, but it's a lot harder to be um, okay mentally when your physical is just fucked, whether that be the diet or um, how your build is or whatever, because of a lot of different factors. Especially if you're one to compare yourself to other people, and everyone does it at some point or another. I still do it sometimes. Um, that shit takes a toll, you know. So it was just a a thing that I started doing, and turned out that it honestly was the best thing that I could have done. So I started working on my physical, and while doing so, I had to face all the shit that was bothering me. And granted, there was a lot of shit that had happened in the last few years, but there was way more to it than that I had just never dealt with. There was years and years and years of um, trauma, for lack of a better word. We're calling it trauma. And I had never dealt with it. So I feel like during this time, I was just having to deal with all these emotions that I didn't know what the fuck they were and didn't know how to deal with until I started changing the pattern. You know, like instead of going home and drinking, I would go home and work out for at least an hour. And, which, mind you, is not something you have to do, but this is what I did. I would go home and work out for an hour, and eventually I got into a job where I could afford a decent, it was Planet Fitness. Yeah, it's not decent, but it was a gym membership. Um, so I would go to go to work and then go to the gym at least 4 times a week, and then do the rest of whatever workouts at home. And while I'm while I'm changing the physical and trying to make my body healthy again, I'm having to realize that I have to face this and deal with it. So step by step, I started going through things, and this part fucking sucks while you're doing it, but it feels better once you've dealt with it. Um, I was dealing with things one at a time or a lot of things at a time, depending on how my brain wanted to be that day. And there are times where I had to force myself to compartmentalize and focus on one thing at a time because there was just too much. There was too much shit that I hadn't dealt with, and there was too much shit that was building up on my mental, and it wasn't okay. It was not anything good. So when I started doing this, um, I would feel a little bit better about certain situations, or just learn to accept that that shit happened and I can't change anything about it. But that shit happened, you know? Um, and then came the idea of, well, how do we do better? How can I do better on my end of whatever it's going to be? And I'm not going to lie to you, there are a lot of times I still struggle with this, but it was improve or die for me. And so I took that with every aspect. So I wanted to figure out how I could be better as a person, you know, just treat people better, because I'll be honest with you, at that time I wasn't super nice to everybody. There was a lot of nepotism, a lot of favoritism going on. Certain people would get better treatment than others, and obviously that's going to happen anyway, depending on your relationship with that person. But um, you know, I really tried. So while I'm doing all of these things, I'm struggling to deal with the emotions that I'm getting from trying to deal with all of the trauma that had been happening for me for years. You know, at that point, it was 2 decades of, or almost 2 decades of fucking misery and I had no idea how to deal with it. There was a lot of things I just again had to accept and move the fuck on, and there was a lot of things that I had to learn from. So since then, I've tried to stay on it, and no, you're never going to be perfect at this. I promise you won't, because nobody's perfect with anything. So I'm still doing these things. I've dealt with most of my trauma, and I've done my best to learn and grow from it, which is honestly what led me to do this. Because I feel like in the world that we're in, we're all fucked up, and everything is fucked up around us. Like, what else do we do? You know, we have one or two options. We can learn and grow, or we can stay stuck and die. You know what I mean? If you're if you're just not growing, you're going to stay in that same place, and you're going to be stuck in that mindset that you have been in, and you're going to die that way. Whether that be as an old person or you die early, whatever. So that is has been my mantra, is improve or die in these regards. When it comes to like having to improve on improve your job performance or something like that, um, it's still kind of the same thing, right? Because you in the world that we live in, we have to work to be able to eat and live. You know, and I don't live glamorously by any means. I live in a fucking 1 bedroom apartment, but it's the best that I've done so far, and I want to continue to do better, as I would hope most of us would want to do. You know what I mean? And I feel like we can take that and apply it to everything, mental and physical. And there are a lot of factors with both of those, but um, I feel like it can be done. It's just a matter of finding what works for you. For me, it was finding an outlet that I could do physically, um, and facing things one by one, and that's what worked. That's what ended up getting me where I'm at now, because I was able to turn it on its head and deal with the problem. You know what I mean? And it was not a quick process. It was not fast. It was a very slow and sometimes grueling process, but that's what it took in order to get out of the depression. Because in a depression like that, I feel, for me anyway, it is going to literally be me or the depression. It is going to kill me, or I'm going to do my best to punch this bitch in the mouth and move on. At least try, you know, because that's all we can do is keep fucking trying. You don't fail until you stop trying. So I kept trying, and I'm still trying. I I deal with depression almost constantly, but it's something that I try to not let affect my day to day anymore, because if I let it have that power, then I'm going to be right back where I was 5 years ago, 4 years ago, however long, where I don't eat and I hardly sleep and everything sucks and I'm pissed off at the world and I just want to end it all. I don't want to be there again. So I refuse to allow myself to be there again. And I think that can be done for everybody. Granted, maybe you can afford tools that I couldn't. Maybe you can afford a therapist and they can give you really good tools to get there. I didn't have that. I just had to do it on my own. I didn't have the option to go to therapy as an adult. And sure, there are financing options, and there's BetterHelp now. There's another one that I got an ad for forever ago, and I can't remember the name of it, but you get it. There are options these days. Um, I didn't see those options, so I dealt with it, and I found the solution myself, and I fucking made it happen. Because again, if I didn't, it was just gonna kill me, and I wasn't ready to do that. As much as I struggle sometimes with it would just be easier if I was dead. I have a little sister that I would love to watch um, be turn into a woman. Legally, she's already there, but I want to watch her turn into a woman. I want to watch her get married and settle down and have her own fucking kids. You know, like, and one day I want to have my own fucking kids. I want to have that life, but I can't do that if I'm dead, can I? You know what I mean? So I feel like if we all have a goal to work for, that will help us tremendously, especially men, because the way that at least that it works for me as a man. If I set myself to a task, then I have my job's not done until that task is completed. And if that task just so happens to be my end goal for a certain thing, my work's not done until I've hit that goal. You know what I mean? So um, that's the way that I see it. I don't know how women's brains works. I have no fucking idea, and I will never claim to know. But what I can tell you is this may not work for everybody, but it worked for me. And if you have another solution, if you have other things that can help you, if you're someone who can't afford therapy and you found another way to do it, I would love to hear about it. I would love to see the comments. I would love to see emails, even. I want to see everything. So I hope this is of some value to you guys. I feel like if I keep talking, I'm just going to run in circles, and nobody wants that. So um, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's just a matter of what are you willing to do to get there? How hard are you willing to work? How grueling are you willing to get? I'm sorry. Let me rephrase. How hard are you willing to let this get in order to get where you want to be? Because nothing easy is worth it, and nothing worth it is easy. And I feel like to be in a good state of mind, there's nothing better. You know, all the money in the world doesn't fucking matter if you're miserable. You know what I mean? All the cars in the world still doesn't matter if you're miserable. And I don't want to live miserably. So I started there. Everything else, depending, will come later, but that's my focus for right now. So I hope this is of value to some of you. And again, if you have other solutions that worked for you or is working for you, I'd love to hear about it. I will see you guys next time.